Today we talk about Bravery in the Sand. This is a game that came with Operations Special Issue number 2. Well, I got it in a trade. Or was it? Did I buy it? I bought the game by itself. I didn't buy the magazine, simply because I was interested in the theme, the map. I saw the pictures of the map on Board Game Geek. The map looks really neat, and I really like the theme. The theme is World War II, North African campaign in particular, my favorite theater of war in wargaming in general, and there's a game that depicts the Operation Crusader. What you have here is the setup. I haven't played the game yet, but I've set it up to play it next in solitaire mode, and I thought, well, you know what, I'll just film a little segment to show you the map and show you the setup so I do not have to redo it later after I play the game. Let's move a little more close up. Well, a lot of close up, very close up, very close up, so that you can see the counters that look really neat. We have tanks, infantry, control markers, to give you a better sense of what's happening in the setup situation. Here we have Tobruk, which is under control of the Allies and is being surrounded by Axis units. There is then a second line of Axis units here protecting the rear guard, with the strongest elements of the Axis army being there, these two German tank divisions. However, things are getting dangerous for the Axis, because here you have a line of Allied units that are coming from the southeast and are trying to relieve the siege of Tobruk. Here we have a little bit of a different situation. Here it is the Axis forces that are sieged, because we have some small Axis garrisons being surrounded by Allied units, and we have a small Italian group right there, and these guys also are now virtually surrounded by the Allies. Well, virtually, technically there's still this connection here. That means relief can be brought there if this is what the Allied player is going to try to do. This is a chit pull game. Divisions are activated by drawing random chits from a cup. So this is a mechanic that I like very much. In particular, it's a mechanic that works very well in solitaire mode, because you never know exactly what's going to happen next. It just brings that degree of randomness to the experience that really makes it easy and fun to play in solitaire. Anyhow, Bravery in the Sand, a game about the Operation Crusader, World War II, North African campaign. I'm going to play it next, and after I play the game, well, more than once, I will share some of my opinions and ideas with you. Okay, I just finished playing my game. It was super fun. It took me probably a little less than 2 hours. It ended in an Axis victory, but a very exciting one. It took a lot of work to get there. Anyway, I thought, since I have the game out, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the rules, and then I'll film my conclusions later. As I said earlier, this is a chit pull game. To activate your units, you draw random chits from a cup. Chits indicate the groups that will be activated. After you draw a chit, you place it there on that track. You activate a corresponding group, and then you pull another chit, and you continue like this. There are 2 DAC counters. Those allow you to activate any German unit that you would like, any German group. Then Italians, there aren't many Italian activation chits. Many Italian units are not activated by chits. They simply move in tow with the Germans. You can drop them off because they're pretty slow, but they do not move by themselves. Another interesting thing is that you do not have to place all of your chits in the cup at the beginning of the game, of a turn. You choose the ones that you want to put in there. Now you may think, why would you not want to put them all in there? Because the number of chits that are pulled and the number, therefore, of of impulses in a turn changes throughout the game. When you draw the first chit, you place it on that track there on top of the present turn. So that, and then when you draw another one, you place it to the left until you fill up the track. So at the beginning of the game, at the end of the first turn, only 8 activation chits are drawn. Later in the game, at the end, last turn, 14 are drawn, 14 groups are activated. This means that if there are specific areas on the map that you want to make sure you will be active in, then you will simply leave out the chits that correspond to units in areas that you're not interested in activating. The ally player has many more chits than the Axis player, so the ally player can just also choose to putting all of his chits simply to dilute the counter mix and make it harder for the Axis player to activate at all. But it's interesting. This is a consideration that you have to take into account, especially in earlier phases of the game when you do not have many available activations. Also, this gives a certain momentum to the action, which becomes larger in scope as the game progresses. I like that idea quite a bit. Now, you draw chits to activate your units. About time, but what do you do with those activated units? Well, another interesting thing, actually, before I talk about units specifically, is that when you activate a group, you activate all the units belonging to a group in a single hex. So you cannot spread the units around too much. It is hard to coordinate action of a group if you start dropping off units right and left and send them in different directions. So splitting a group is a bit of a momentous decisions that you have to do. Well, you have to think about what you're doing. You have to do it carefully. Units have 2 important stats on them. One is a letter that indicates the quality of the unit, and the other one is a number which indicates the movement allowance. Also, there is a nice drawing that tells you whether a unit is a tank unit or infantry unit. When a unit is activated through a chit, the unit can move and then attack in the X in which the unit moves. If in that X there are enemy units, for example, that would be the case. Or the unit can just move. There are cases where you start your activation in an X that already has enemy units, then you can choose to leave the hex or simply to attack. Usually you need to attack at the end of the movement of a group. I move that group, activate it, move there, attack. But you can choose actually to prepare combined attack. In that case, you place a marker on the unit that moved where an attack will take place, but did not yet, and the attack is postponed. Then supposedly later in the turn I activate this, the group that I moved there too. And at that point, I can trigger my combined attack. At the end of a turn, all the combined attacks that are still on the map and that were not resolved are resolved. And there are, well, tricky situations here because it may be that you are preparing a combined attack, you send in a small group to face a larger group because you're hoping to attack them later, and then the larger group is activated and they attack you before you have prepared all of your combined attack. Interesting situation there. Movement, standard movement is of that many movement allowances. Moving on roads is half a movement point per hex side. Crossing a hex site using a trail or a caravan is 1 movement point. And then you have these ridges here which are impassable. And moving across a desert hex site is 2 movement points. You move and you attack. That's important stuff. To attack, you need to calculate the number of dice that you will use. Bucket of dice. Keep a lot of dice with you when you're playing the game. For each unit that is at full strength, you receive a die that you will roll in combat. Units have 2 steps. Full strength, and then as you can see, they have another side with a stripe across, which indicates a reduced unit. Reduced units are worth half a die. In this case, in this attack, I get 2 dice for these 2 units, 1 for that, as I'm counting the dice for the allies. This is half a point. Doesn't help me because you round it down. Here the Italians have half a die, 1 die, that means 1 die. The players roll their dice and they inflict a hit on the opponent on a 6. That's it. But there are modifiers that give you better chances. For example, I talked about the quality, which is indicated by the letter. If you have 2 levels of qualities above the opponent, then you get a bonus of +1. For example, if you have only A units attacking C units or B units attacking D units, then you get a +1, which means you hit on a 5 or a 6, not on a 6. If all enemy units are at reduced strength, you also get +1, and that's cumulative. You may be defending in a controlled fort, then you get a +1. Also, starting from turn 4, the Axis player receives the rumble marker, which can be associated with a group once per turn, and that group has an increased movement allowance for that turn. Rommel is there, giving them pep talks and using his amazing commanding skills. So they move faster, they drive faster, and also they fight better because they also have a +1 when they're fighting. You roll the dice, you apply the hits. Half of the hits need to be applied to the units on your side that have the better quality. You can start eliminating lower quality units first. You take hits, and then, well, what happens after a round of combat? After a round of combat, if you took at least a hit, you have a chance of retreating. You can choose to retreat from the hex. Both sides can make that decision. Both sides may retreat. Only one side may retreat. If at the end of the first turn of combat neither side retreated and both sides are still there, they have not been annihilated, then you repeat the procedure. In a combined attack, you need to fight at least for a number of rounds equal to the number of groups that are part of the combined attack, 2 groups, 2 rounds. Also, in order to be able to retreat, you need to have taken a hit. You can just retreat for the sake of it. That's pretty important. When at the end of combat, suppose the Italians retreated ingloriously after taking a hit. After combat, if some of your tanks took a hit and you did not retreat, you're still there, you can refit your tanks, or you can try to do so. For each tank that at least took a hit, you roll a die. If a German tank rolls a 5 or a 6, then the German tank recovers a step. If an allied tank rolls a 6, it gets a point back. Italian tanks never recover because that's just the way it is. Other tanks, at the end of each turn, starting from turn 2, the allies receive replacements, so they can recover hits that they took by flipping units back or bringing back to the game units that were destroyed. But if you are refitting a unit that way, if you're receiving a replacement, then you cannot place the activation cheat for that group in the cup. That means the turn that starts with you receiving a replacement is a turn where you cannot activate the group that received the replacement. There are a couple of other things, for example, rules about fortifications and encampments, but that's not really too big of a deal. Those are small things. The main concepts I explained: you draw chits, activate units, move and attack, and try to destroy enemy units and to take control of specific locations. There are strategic objectives on the board. You place control markers. The control may change throughout the game. The Axis player gets an immediate instant victory for taking control of Tobruk, if he ever manages to do so, which is not all that easy. Also, if the Axis player inflicts enough damage on the opponent, that also results in an immediate decisive victory. Another way is to place at least 3 points of combat strength on one or more of these axes, the axes that lead to Alexandria, and then to have an uninterrupted connection using caravans to some specific objectives on the board, such as Bir el Gubi. The ally player wins an decisive and immediate victory by inflicting a lot of pain, a lot of damage on the German tanks, or by having at least 3 points of combat strength on the road to Tripoli and having cleared up these excess here of German units. If Italian units are there, that's fine. That's still fine. If neither of those conditions, if none of those conditions are met throughout the game, at the end of turn 7 you count points. Tobruk is worth 2 victory points, and the objectives that can be controlled on the map are worth 1 victory point each. The player with the highest amount of victory points, unsurprisingly, at that point is the winner. Okay, I played the game only once, so I'll take these as preliminary conclusions. In the next day or two, I think I'll have time to play it more, but I do not know that I will have the time to film my conclusions then. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna film my impressions now, and then if my impressions do not change, I'll use this segment in my video. So if you are listening to this at all, it means that actually my preliminary conclusions proved to be accurate after a couple of plays too. What are these conclusions? That this game is fun. This game is really enjoyable. What a pleasant surprise. I would have never come across this game if not for a specific interest in the theme. It's not a game that has a lot of information about it. I guess it is to be expected with magazine games. Also came in this counter holder here. I don't think this is how it came in the original package. I guess this was added by the person who sold it to me or that traded it to me. I don't remember which, but I'm glad that I added this game to my collection. Pretty simple, very simple, very basic. It could be a perfect introductory war game for somebody who never played a war game before. And at the same time, oh, there's so much meat in it. There's so much hidden or not so hidden depth. There's so many tough decisions. There's so many difficult moments. The situation changes fast on the board, and you have to take that into account. It really gives you the sense of, well, desert warfare, where things work a little bit like in the sea, where it's hard to keep a steady, strong position. You fight for positions, and then people move around a lot. This is definitely captured here. At the same time, you have a very interesting connection here between areas where you move a lot of fluid action. You reinforce groups, you move around, you surround your opponent, you find yourself surrounded, and then again you're sandwiching the opponent between different groups, and then that happens again to you. And on the other hand, there are parts of the map which really are tough to take. You just have to keep pounding and pounding and pounding. Tobruk, unsurprisingly, is one of them. Halfaya Pass, unsurprisingly, is one of them. But that works too. And it really creates this sense of tension, of a nice balance between quick, fast, mobile action in the central parts of the board, especially as players are trying to take control of objectives quickly and to establish connections that may lead them to win a decisive victory. And at the same time, you have areas of the map where you have these painful, long, devastating sieges, which is not an automatic thing. It's not like, well, I set that thing up, I'll just keep rolling for a couple of turns, because you need to decide how many forces you want to commit to each area of the map. You defend Tobruk too much as the ally player, then the road to Tripoli becomes easier to access for the Axis player. You do not defend Tobruk enough. Well, you know, if you know anything about World War II, you know that that's not good for the Allies. In this game, actually, you lose the game immediately. I need to take this phone call. I'll be back. filming later during the day, my opinion of the game is not changed, if not that I like it even more. I played the game more and I discovered, as I suspected, the replay value is really, really high. And this is because of the several possible ways for the two sides to win the game. Then the two sides have to concentrate on what they want to do mainly. Because, of course, you can continuously have to adjust based on the changing situation on the board. You may have to reorder your priorities, but if you change them around too much, that's not too good. But definitely a lot of possible ways of going about things. The Axis can try to concentrate on taking Tobruk early before the wave of Allied reinforcements arrives. The Germans and the Italians can set up a defense somewhere between Tobruk and the line of advancing Allied units. A lot of possible ways to go about things. They can try to work on the objectives that are kind of south, more like south on the map to clear up a road to go to Tripoli, and the ally player, same thing, can try to achieve different types of victories. You can do that in different ways in different games. Chit pull mechanics, that's really great, that's really fantastic. It adds replay value, it adds enough fog of war that you can play the game solitaire. You only have limited vision of what's gonna happen next. I like the fact that you can choose the activation cheats that go in your counter mix and you can try to manipulate things in several ways. I've read somewhere online that somebody said that actually you should put all of the cheats in the cup. I'm pretty sure that the rulebook says that you can choose. It says that in several times. And if the designer changes his mind later, I'll play this version here because I think the game is really tight and fun and an extra level of challenge and decision making thanks to the fact that you can select the cheats that go in the cup at the beginning of each turn. Fun game, small, elegant, tight, tense, everything that you can ask for from a war game. At least that's the stuff that usually I'm looking for. It is also very easy to get into, which is always a plus. I would definitely recommend this as an introductory war game, but trust me, if you are a seasoned grognard, I don't think that you will be bored playing this game. There's a lot for you to bite into. Bravery in the Sand, I hope that this review will bring this little known game to the attention of more people. I hope more people will play it and own it, because personally I had a great time playing it, and I think that a lot of other players can have a good time playing it too.